works a rebound. Bosh back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining.
Oh yeah, we packing somebody up tonight. Hey. Come on in, take your shoes off before we close the door. Few rules, heat pack in the air, we about to blow. This the basement, ain't nobody safe, you already know. Grab a seat and kick your feet before you get too comfortable. You want the X's and the O's, the tray, yes and no. Friends and the foes, the butlers and the heroes. You can feel it in your soul, but when the ring is the goal. But if somebody need to go, we be sure to let you know. Going hard for my dogs is an everyday thing. Like Jimmy down the lane of 13 off the screen. Whole squad keep it tucked like number 17. Bring your takes and your memes, going hard for the team. Going down in the basement. It's going down in the basement. Get your takes off. Get your takes off. Going down in the basement.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Basement Sports Network first trade show, and hopefully something that we do every year. Trades are personally my favorite part of the NBA, and really think this Heat team needs something to jostle them out of their 500 middling, kind of disappointing. I think. I mean, you keep hearing Jimmy say they're winning the championship. I don't know which one he's talking about. I don't think it's the NBA championship. So joining me tonight, obviously, I think a lot of you guys know me by now. I'm Hot Take Harry or Harrison, whatever you prefer. I'm joined by Adam Barai. Adam, hello. And Alex Sheltman. Hello,
Howdy.
gentlemen.
I guess Adam's not going to speak at all, but excited to get started.
It's a reach for me to go to my iPad and press unmute. So if I don't have to speak, I'm not going to speak.
Perfect. He's just going to lurk in the shadows. No worries. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about obviously where the Heat are, kind of some of the worries about the team going forward, and possible moves that are available for this Heat team over the next basically month. So today's January 9th. The NBA trade deadline is February 9th, so we're 1 month away. As we've been mentioning a lot, guys, January 15th, which is Sunday, is the day that Dedmon and Victor Oladipo would become available to trade. So that kind of opens up about 98% of the contracts in the league become tradable on that date. There's essentially like just a few contracts where you're talking about that 6-month extension period for certain players, depending on salary increase and years of the extension that they can't be moved. But otherwise, everybody else is fair game to be moved. And the NBA has just a little under a month to figure out what kind of trades they want to do before that deadline happens on February 9th. For the Heat, as you guys know, we're sitting at 21-20, exactly halfway through the season, after what I would say was kind of a disappointing loss last night to the Nets after KD went down with what looks like he's going to be out for a month with another MCL injury. So that was unfortunate for the Nets. But probably a game that he should have won, another one where they couldn't score in the second half. The half-court offense was actually bad the entire game, even though they had a pretty productive first half on offense. But the half-court offense is still an issue with this Heat team. And I think they have to start looking to make some moves, even if it's not necessarily the moves to become a contender this season, one where they look to kind of retool over the next 2 years to get back into the thick of things in the NBA and really be contenders. So, and the other thing I want to mention is if you guys saw the injury report come out, basically the whole team is questionable to play tomorrow against the Thunder. Bam and Hero are both questionable, so I would say their injuries were not as bad as they looked during the game last night, but there's still things to worry about, and they could be lingering issues. Bam's was complaining about his hand wrist area, and Hero, I don't know what happened to him when he slipped, but they're listing Achilles now. So hopefully these are injuries where they can take a few games off and feel better and just nurse them. But things to think about as we're going forward. And we're kind of going to look tonight. We're going to look tonight at deals that we think are reasonable, possible, things that are more likely to occur. and we'll kind of just go through some guys that we think are a possibility, what it would cost the Heat, if it makes sense for the Heat to make that move. And then we'll go to you guys and kind of see what trades you're looking at, who you'd like them to look into acquire, and we'll see if that's possible. We are going to do our best to use the trade machine as we are discussing these moves, and we'll go from there. So Adam, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I will say over the last 24 hours or so, I began to ask a lot of people that would know things that the Heat would be interested in and what they are trying to do this trade deadline. I didn't really ask any time before then because I didn't really care. So at this juncture, I do have a little bit of information. I'm still waiting on a few people to get back to me and confirm on certain names and teams, but I think it's fair to drop a little bit of hints before on this show before I officially tweet anything tomorrow or the day after. So look for that throughout the show where we'll be hinting at certain names and certain teams and certain things that I'm hearing.
All right. We're looking forward to that. Definitely looking forward to see what you're hearing around the league. And obviously, if there's any moves out there for kind of this bumbling, stumbling Heat team that's kind of going through the motions this year. And Alex, is there anyone or what are your thoughts on this Heat season going forward? Do you think there are a couple moves out there that they can make that kind of jumps them up into kind of the top tier in the East where they could go back to competing the way they were last season? Or are we just kind of in a holding pattern just to kind of see what we can do over the next 2 years and kind of go more for a retool?
Yeah, realistically, this feels like more of a 2-year thing to me. I don't think they're going to be able to make any combination of moves where you're going to see the Heat seriously contending to come out of the East. It's going to take a variety of luck between their own team staying healthy, which has been an issue all year, players overperforming their expected output, as well as, the top teams in the East to also probably falter in a variety of ways, whether that's individual play or some sort of injury where, we saw KD go down a little bit yesterday. So that might open the door for them to climb a little bit in the standings, but it's not looking like a one player acquisition type deal. They don't really have the full assets available to them to grab like a big name. And I don't really know if there even is a large name out there that is fully available. You hear things about Zach LaVine a little bit, you hear things about other players, but it's not really concrete totally to this point. So they're probably looking to make 2 to 3 deals. I would expect that might be ambitious. But they're probably, looking to fill the obvious issues at the 4 that we continue to harp on. And the other place that they're probably looking to look towards is the point of attack defense.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, this is kind of a 2-year thing because my thoughts are that they need to make 3 to 4 moves to retool this roster. And that's just not something that's likely to be done over the next month. So, if they could do 2 moves now looking towards the future and then try to figure something out else for the offseason, that's kind of where I'm looking. Additionally, I think we should just kind of go over the assets that the Heat do have, just so people are aware. We don't want to, there's a lot of misinformation on Twitter and online. You just want to make sure people are clear on what would be available to move. For the Heat and for right now, they have a 2023 first round pick that is available to be moved. Their 2025 pick is lottery protected and owed to Oklahoma City Thunder. And because of that lottery protection, they also at this time cannot move the 2027 pick without some help or some, Thunder would want some incentive to change the protections or change that pick. So they have the 2023 first round pick and they have the 2029 first round pick that would be available to move. In addition to first round picks, they only have 3 second round picks. There's a 2026 pick, which is between 3 teams. It's not their own. And the Heat have their own 2028 second round pick and their own 2029 second round pick. That's really what they have available. It's not a lot. Other teams are going to have much
I mean, Harry, it is a lot. It's just there are certain teams that will outbid them regardless of what they want to do. But I mean, let's be fair to the Heat here. They have the majority of their assets. They have the majority of their picks. It's just there's that one hurdle that stops them from trading all of their picks.
I'm going to disagree just a little bit. I mean, they definitely having 2 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks available to move is not a small amount of picks you can move. You are correct that I don't think they would use them all in one move. They've been reluctant. They seemed reluctant to go all in recently. The other thing I was just going to say is a lot of teams have other teams' picks because they've either tanked or they've sold off guys. So that's who you're competing against when you're talking about trying to land a star in this league. And that is going to be tough for a Heat team that is always going to be behind the 8 ball in terms of assets. It's the way I think about it. They're just going to be.
They're not going to get a star this trade deadline. Let's be clear on that. It's just not.
And it's really tough this deadline, and we've talked about it before, because while Tyler Hero can be moved, there is a poison pill attached to his contract for this year. And essentially, while he's only making about $5 million for the Heat, his outgoing money to another team is the average of his new deal with this year. So it's around 20, I think it's like 26 million. And obviously you would have to dump a much larger contract in order to move Hero and make that move. So that move is incredibly complicated and not something that we believe is going to happen within the next month. Hero can be moved with absolutely no restrictions on July 1st as part of his new extension that he signed last summer. So that's kind of where the Heat are. They have to make a decision of what direction they want to go in. Do they want to try to continue to compete, hoping that maybe a team in front of them would suffer an injury? We obviously saw KD is injured again, out for, they say, at least a month. Chris Middleton got injured in the playoffs last year, and I would argue that's a big reason why the Bucks did not advance over the Celtics. And so, yeah, you have to get lucky in order to win NBA championships. That's part of winning. But at the same time, I think this Heat team is just a few moves away, and 3 to 4 moves away. That's what I'm saying. We're few, and I don't know if that can be done in 1 month and 1 trade deadline. So let's kind of move into the guys that we think are available, and we can kind of look at this list and see. Oh, we got a donation. Thank you, Darius Jordan. The Invisible Man is in the building. Shout out Adam. Adam, thank you for being here. You just got us some money.
Thank you, Darius. It seems like you're my biggest fan, so we'll keep that going if we can. No, but let me jump in real quick. We already established that we think that the Heat aren't going to trade for a star over the next month. I think it's pretty clear what direction they want to go in. They want to compete. They want to get that 4. They want that score. There's been enough rumors over the past 3 or 4 months to imply that if there is an upgrade, they are going to look into it and try to acquire that player. Most recently, there was the D'Angelo Russell trade rumors, which I think are really valid, and I think that they are a legit possibility, more so because the Timberwolves aren't looking too hot after the Rudy Gobert trade, not because it's something that the Heat desperately need. I mean, I don't think we need to add another subpar defender that can shoot to this roster if we don't need to, but I think it makes a lot of sense for both teams, particularly because D'Angelo Russell is he's 26 or 27? 26, right? And he's going to be an unrestricted free agent particularly soon. So I don't know about you guys, but that kind of deal I'd be all in for. I think personally, the Heat should go into this trade deadline with the mindset of, if they are 27 or under and they fit our culture, they fit what we're looking to do, the picks should be on the table. If they do not fit the timeline, they're out of position, they're like a D'Angelo Russell, right? While he does fit the timeline, he doesn't fit a particular need that they have. I would not have the picks on the table. For those type of players, don't trade any of the picks. But for a guy like, I don't know, OG Anunoby, the pick should be on the table. Absolutely. Those kind of players are the ones you put the 2 first-round picks for. And I think that all three of us can agree on that kind of perspective that the Heat should have and should go into this deadline with.
Yeah, Adam, my thoughts are if you are giving up these picks, this has to be a guy who's a long-term solution for the Heat. He'd have to be under contract for a little bit, and you'd already probably be thinking about extension talks with this player. So it would not be a short rental, a 1 to 2 year thing. This would be, if you're giving up the picks, this is a 4 to 5 year thing. Obviously, you can't predict that far down the line, but that's your thought process. If you're giving up your first-round picks, those would be, at this time, they'd be the only tradable first-round picks that you have for the rest of the decade.
Yeah, and if you're giving up and I'll go even as far to say is if you're giving up the 23 first-round pick, it has to be enough of an upgrade to justify losing that first-round pick, meaning you think that pick is going to be 24, 25, around that area, which I don't think is even remotely possible at this point, but 20s. It has to be in the 20s to justify giving up the 23 pick. And I don't know if a player like that is going to be available. A player that's sticking out in my mind is DeMar DeRozan, which I think is the type of player that would justify giving up that pick. But the Bulls have been resurging a little bit lately, and they've been playing a lot better, and I don't think that a guy of his caliber is going to be available. Bulls might be buyers by the time the trade deadline comes and goes, so that's the type of situation that we're in, where everything is fluid, and we don't know who is going to be a buyer and who's going to be seller. At this point, we only know the obvious ones, right? The teams that are in the top 4 of each conference, we know that those guys are the buyers, and we know that the bottom 5 teams in the league, your Hornets, your Pistons, those guys are going to be the sellers. That middle ground, that murky middle ground, is always what determines trade deadlines every single year. And I think that the prime example is the Toronto Raptors this year. We don't know what they're going to do, but I bet you they are going to be the team that dictates the trade deadline as a whole.
Would you guys do the 2023 pick and possibly more for a guy like Lauri Markkanen? The Jazz are 3-7 over the last 10. They have a very clear objective to not be good this year based on their assets that they've acquired. And they might, as time goes on, be more willing to sell high on a guy like Lauri going forward.
So let me just jump in. From what I heard from a guy that I really trust out in Utah, Lowry's not on the table this season. It's more like a next season sort of thing. I would do that trade. You said the 23 first, right? That's it?
23 and presumably a little bit. I don't think they would just do it for just the 23.
Right.
But.
I would do it, but what I was told is he's untouchable for this season. The other guys are available. He's not available.
Yeah, and to me, that's an interesting guy. And the thing we talked about, we got a little we got a little annoyed in the offseason is you got to make these moves when they're available. I don't think anyone really had Lauri Markkanen as the most improved player in the NBA, and that's kind of on the trajectory where he is now. I think you could have gotten him for Cleveland for not a ton. He was basically used as salary filler in the Donovan Mitchell trade. I do not think they were getting him expecting him to be the player that he is. He was great coming out of the draft. I really liked him. He had some tough stops in Chicago and Cleveland. I don't think either team really knew how to use him that well. But this system in Utah with a ton of space has unlocked his game, and he would be a perfect fit next to Bam. But I agree with you. I don't really see where they're moving him right now. They're probably holding him to make a bigger move next year. He probably becomes part of a big package with all of the picks that Utah has if they want to do something bigger in a year. But
or they could keep him. He's young enough.
Or they can
24, right?
Yeah, or they can extend him and make him a part of their core. There's, obviously, for a young Finnish guy, Utah's probably a good place to be for the fans, and so I think he could do quite well there. So he's probably a guy that they're another guy that possibly got away from the Heat. I don't know if they were ever seriously looking at him, but obviously there are moves that sometimes you got to make when they're available because you don't know how long they're going to be there. Let's move on a little bit to another guy that has been discussed a lot. I would bet he is moved this before the deadline. I don't know where, but I know that extension talks have kind of dried up in DC. So let's talk about Kyle Kuzma. He's a guy that obviously struggled a bit early on in his career with the Lakers, but has really kind of come into his own, has found his game. He's a very good kind of stretch forward for your team. He's become a pretty good scorer, and he's on a Wizards team that is very bad, and I have to assume that they're going to be one of the sellers at the deadline, depending on what they can get for some of their guys. So let's talk about Kuzma. This might be a good time to bring up the trade machine and see what we can do if the Heat would be interested. And what would you guys be willing to give in order to acquire Kyle Kuzma? It would just be, my thought would be that obviously I'm pretty sure he's expiring this year, but so there'd be extension talks if you were giving up a first round pick. What are you guys interested in if you were talking about Kuzma?
Yeah, so I brought up Kuzma on the Random Scrub Heat podcast last week. I think he's an interesting fit. I think he's a little bit older than you would think that we want, 27 years old, but he does sort of fit what we need. He's a stretch four. He does defend well. He shoots the ball pretty well. And I feel like if you can combine him with some of these other players here, on the Wizards roster, whether it's Will Barton or Monty Morris, you could put together a nice, package of 2 to 3 players that sort of address multiple needs at the same time. So the obvious thing here would be Kuzma, and then let's just say you want to get Monty Morris. Monty Morris is a pretty solid point guard for people that don't know. Over the last 3 years, he's over 25 minutes a game. He's under 1 turnover per game, and he shoots the ball at a 39% rate from 3. So he's very, very good for what the Heat are lacking in Kyle Lowry right now. I don't know if you can squeeze a Will Barton into this deal. It feels like it's starting to get a little bloated with some of these salaries. But then you'd have to, you'd obviously go Duncan. You'd probably go Kyle. And then you would likely have to go Caleb Martin back. What do you guys think? Caleb in addition here?
I think Jovic more than anyone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Jovic for sure. And then would you guys think 2 or 1 pick? I would assume 2.
No, 1.
1?
Yeah.
So would you go 23 or 29?
You're paying to extend Kuzma. That's part of the deal. You're not just paying for Kuzma under the contract. So typically, because he's going to be a free agent, it should be cheaper to acquire him. But I don't even know if I would do this deal, to be quite honest with you. It seems like a lot, and you're not really guaranteed to improve your position that much. To me, this is a shuffling the deck chairs a little bit and giving up some future assets, so you won't have the ability in the future to make a substantial deal, because you're going to have to extend Kuzma. Will Barton's going to be gone after this year, and then Monty Morris will be your last remaining guy. And if he's your backup point guard, what are you going to do with Gabe Vincent? So to me, this is just a wash in terms of all of the talent going back and forth, and I don't think it's worth it for the Heat, nor is it worth it for the Wizards.
So let's just stick to Kuzma. Let's undo Barton and Morris here. What would you do for just Kuzma? Pick and Jovic, or is that feeling too... we would obviously need some sort of salary filler, of course, but...
Yeah, I mean, I would do... I think I would... Look, your first offer is Duncan and a first. If that doesn't give, Duncan first, then Jovic. And if they say no, I'm walking away.
Something like that, hard cap.
Yeah, I mean...
you just have to take back, one little contract.
But to me, that's the only way I would do this deal.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, that works in theory. You get the 4. You don't really give up too much. You get off Duncan's abysmal contract. I know people are sort of attached to Jovic just because he hasn't really played too much this year, but he is a late first-round pick. He could turn out to be something, but I feel like people are a little bit high on him at this point in the season.
I think a lot of Jovic is. I think people are willing to give up the picks. Last year at the draft, they kind of were hoping like Duncan and that pick would have gotten you something. So, to be honest, while we definitely see
like
parts of what happened,
like Jeremy Grant, yeah,
like Jeremy Grant, obviously. He's having a great year. They're probably going to extend him in Portland. yeah, there were moves to be made, and obviously the Heat were a little hesitant in doing that. I guess they thought bringing the squad back, they liked their team, and it wasn't going to be much of an issue. But a lot of us foresaw this issue happening, and I think Jovic could be a good fit on the Heat. If you think, like, I know people have issues with Tyler Hero and him, years for him getting into his prime. It's going to take much longer for a guy who hasn't even graduated high school yet or is in the process of doing that. So I'm willing to give him up. If you're doing Jovic in a pick, I probably want it to be a better player, and I don't know if the other team is interested in that. So you kind of run into this issue where Duncan's contract is absolutely abysmal, and I think it's a negative at this point. Plus, he's coming off this surgery he should have had months ago whenever he decided to, get his jersey caught or his finger caught in his jersey or whatever happened to him. I'm just not sure how much I'm willing to give up for a slight upgrade in Kuzma. Let's go a little bit north of DC. Let's kind of go up to the Detroit Pistons. They're having another tough year. Cade Cunningham is out for the year. They're obviously tanking again. And while they have some talented young players, they're probably looking to make some moves and shuffle the deck a little bit and figure out if they can get more draft capital for some of their guys. A couple of guys that have been mentioned. We talk about Bojan, who they acquired from Utah right before the season started for not a lot. Another guy that we thought would have been good on the Heat. They did not give up a lot for him. It was like Olynyk and something else. They really was kind of an odd move in my mind. And then the other guy who people like, and I believe he has one more year left before he hits restricted free agency, is Saddiq Bey. So, there are definitely guys that the Heat are interested in. What would a trade like that look like? Do you think they could acquire both of them, Adam, or do you think it would be one or the other?
I think it would be one or the other, but if we're going by the Heat standards and what they typically do, they're going to go for that foreign guy up there, the European guy. They're not going to go for Saddiq Bey, I don't think. Although, from what I know, from what I had heard a few weeks ago, is there was some interest. I don't know if it's anything enough to pursue him in a trade individually before any other target, but there was some interest there, and they had interest in him before draft night. And I think that's actually, not to rewind ourselves completely back there, but I think that's why Detroit made that deal with Brooklyn to jump Miami to make sure that Saddiq doesn't end up on the Heat, and so that they could take him. And that's obviously how the Heat ended up with Precious. This seems like the Pat Riley move to go get one of these guys, but it just doesn't move the needle for me. I mean, it would be a great fit on the Heat, but is it really worth justifying giving up a first-round pick for your 33-year-old 6'7", is going to leave in a year, or you're going to give him a massive extension? Is it really worth it? To me, that's a no. I'd rather go for Saddiq over anyone on Detroit's roster at this point that would be available. But that's just me.
So my thoughts are that if you separate them, if you're just going after Bojan, for example, I think they probably just want the first. They just extended him, so it's this year, next year, and then that year after is non-guaranteed. I believe that a deal. I think you could do it. Yeah, I think you could do it for like. And if they wanted the salary to be closer, you could probably add in Dedmon too. You could do Duncan Dedmon at a first. Obviously, Detroit's only doing that for the first round pick. They're going to waive Dedmon immediately, and they'll probably keep Duncan for a couple years to move him in 2 seasons. He wouldn't be a long-term tenure there. With Bey, because his salary is so low, I think you'd have to do something like Saddiq Bey and Nerlens Noel, something like that. I know the Heat would probably be interested in Noel as a backup big. And I think that might also take a first-round pick.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's not much to discuss with the Pistons if it's not Bojan, whatever. and it's not Sadiq, I don't think it's really worth discussing. But if we can speed this up, can we talk about Toronto?
Yeah, we can go at any pace you want.
Okay.
Let's.
Because for me, Detroit's like such an it's like whatever, you know.
We got to cover everything though. Like obviously,
Yeah.
Detroit's not the sexiest at all in terms of a team or a city. Right now.
Adam is looking for the move that is definitive, whereas I think he's saying guys like Bohan, guys like all these other guys that we're discussing.
That's the third pronunciation of his name. I don't know what.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's Bojan, but I would not bet my life on it.
Do you see why I call them like that Eastern European guy?
The European guy.
Right. It's like whatever.
He's a piece, and you need two more pieces on top of him. Adam wants to go for this guy right here.
I want him.
We should just go from now on. We should just say B squared or something. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So where do we start on OG? It's clearly going to take 2 picks, right, Adam?
Yes, and I would do it instantly. Oh, those are the 2 you're going to go with? Okay. Yes.
Did you want to do 27? We would need to work with OKC, I think, right?
You don't know the how the lengths that I would go to get OG Anunoby on this team. I would, in a more complicated trade, I would trade Tyler. But obviously I would want a lot more back. It would feel like the trade is for Tyler more so than for Anunoby. But if we're keeping Tyler, and my preference would be to keep Tyler, I would give up the picks that they want. I don't know. The 3 firsts seem a little too rich. I think this is the only way that the Raptors say yes. I don't think the Raptors say yes to 2 firsts, Jovic and Robinson. To me, that just feels like a hard sell for Raptors fans and for a team that, is 2 years, 3 years removed from winning a championship to fall this far down and move OG for 2 firsts really seems like a real downgrade for the Raptors. I don't know if they would do it. But at the same time, 3 firsts is just too much to give for Anunoby.
Yeah.
So stuck in that middle ground where, I would do the 3 firsts, but that's because I'm in love with OG Anunoby. Maybe somebody in the Heat front office feels the same way, but it's really unlikely. I just think that the fit with Bam is perfect.
Would you think that the Raptors are more likely to do something like Tyler and a first, Tyler Jovic and a first plus salary filler to match, or would they want to get into? I'm assuming they would want to get into. I don't even
think they'll have that conversation with the Heat. They won't even get that far. It'll be, OG is staying on our team. We're not interested in your first round picks. Gary Trent's available if you want him. Fred VanVleet's available. You can have him. But OG, we're gonna keep. But you never know. There's always that shock move that happens that no one sees coming, and it could be OG Anunoby. I don't know. That team looks primed for the tank right now, and I think that if they really want to make that move to signify and show that they're tanking, it would be to trade OG.
Does 3 firsts from the Raptors front office perspective make them unable to say no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When was the last time a guy like OG Anunoby got traded for 3 firsts?
Rudy Gobert. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, come on. Let's be real here. Although, at this rate, I don't know what's going on with the league. I think, like I said, OG, if not, Gary Trent Jr. is a good guy to go after. 23 years old. I'm just reading off of this. 6'5", shooting guard. I think he would be a good 6-man for this team if they could manage to swing him. There were rumors, I think, from Mark Stein earlier today that he was available. Somebody tweeted out that he was available. And I don't think it would cost that much. I really don't. I think maybe a protected future first and an expiring contract. I think that would be the cost to get him because he is an expiring deal and he has a player option, but I think he's going to decline that. He would be a really good get. He'd be your 6-man. He's a 6-man of the year type player, and I think that it's perfect for what the Heat need. But the Heat are last in the NBA in bench scoring now, something like that.
They're very low.
Chef's kiss. It would be perfect.
I think the other thing. Oh, sorry, we have a donation from JGB Respect. Thank you for your $4.99 donation. Most of these trade ideas just makes me want to skip to next season. To be honest, we're really stuck in the middle. Yes, I would have to agree that we kind of are a bit in the middle, but that's why they have to kind of choose a direction. The problem with just doing nothing and letting this ride out is this is just not likely going to be a team that's going to tank. And because they're not going to do that, not making any moves at all makes next summer very uncomfortable for the team. You're basically looking at 5 guys that are going to be making $150 million. I believe they're already into the tax with the guys that would be signed for next year. And while everyone would assume that Lowry would be dumped and they'd probably try to find a move to get rid of Duncan, you're really not helping the team if you make no moves to figure out who's going to be around them. They're going to have the same mid-level exception and biannual exception to use next summer, but if they're already in the tax, knowing what we know about the Heat, they're probably not going to use it. And you just you can't allow this to, I was going to say, you can't allow this to continue, but seriously, you cannot continue with this team as is again. We can't do it again. And I'm not going to stand for it as a fan.
Yeah, particularly, I mean, we can stand for it. There's nothing we can do. We can just watch the team, or we can turn off the TV and stop watching. So particularly because Max Strus and Gabe Vincent are going to be free agents. And to me, that's that underlying, wave that's coming, that's going to hit the Heat as free agency unfolds. And the issue is, do you overpay them and go so far into the tax that there's no denying that you have to compete, but at the same time you don't have the roster to compete? Or do you trade them now? And we know that the Heat don't have a history of trading their guys in the last year of their contract, so it's really difficult to make this decision when you have an aging point guard, a superstar small forward that wants to win a championship this year, and you don't know the direction of the team because you're losing and you have all of these pieces right after you went to the Eastern Conference Finals the previous year. So I think the Heat are going to really try to stay away from trading draft picks, use a Gabe Vincent or a Max Strus as a sweetener in a deal instead of those draft picks, and get a long-term solution at the 4 or at the 1 position when they trade Kyle Lowry eventually.
The other thing,
can I circle back a little bit real quick? So I like the idea of the Raptors because, we're seeing a lot of stuff coming out from their camp, it seems, on Twitter a lot. I recently saw a tweet where people in the front office were split between whether or not they wanted to trade OG or they wanted to full sell on someone like Siakam now. I don't know if we quite have the assets aside from Bam to get Siakam, but if that was something available, you would obviously be all in.
The Knicks exist.
Of course. We're gonna, everyone that's watching, the Knicks always exist is going to be the frequent phrase that we use if we're trying to get into a bidding war. I think they have 7 first-round picks available to trade. So anytime we're talking about one of these stars, it's tough to even offer up an option for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the Raptors would entertain trading Pascal. He's having a really, really good year. He might be very, very close to all NBA. I don't see where we'd have enough for that. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to the OG conversation. He's kind of been interesting because I thought the Raptors were looking to move him before the season. It just seemed like they had a ton of forwards, a ton of guys that could play that role. Now they're struggling as a team and really underachieving. I don't think anyone saw them struggling this badly. And for them, they probably just need to find more guys that make sense. I understand that while Duncan is not a great contract, they could definitely use some more shooting to surround some of their guys. And he is a shooter. I don't think he's a very good one, but he exists and people think he can shoot. So who knows? I know they were interested in Duncan when they were trying to talk about Lowry, the trade deadline before he ended up getting moved here. Duncan was in that move. He would have been moved for Lowry if that trade went down. And so maybe there's some interest. Maybe they're not totally turned off by his disgusting play recently. But, maybe there's something there. I kind of agree with Adam that OG for 2 first-round picks sounds good. Definitely something the Heat would do. I'm not sure if the Raptors do put him on the block and get all the possible offers that wouldn't be trumped. fairly easily, I think. Because even if you're saying it's 2 first-round picks, I feel like a team would match that and would have a better contract to move instead of the ones that we have. So that would be great. OG is a perfect fit next to Bam. I know we joke about that a lot, but he would, he's kind of exactly the player you need. A long, rangy wing defender who can hit the 3 ball. He's becoming a lot better offensively, and I think he still has a long way to go. I just don't know if the Heat have what it takes to get him, but he would be one of my top guys if he's available to get. He would mesh with this team perfectly. Just not sure.
I would say he's also like one of the best contracts in the league. He's only making like 17.5 million. That's like a fraction higher than Duncan, which is insane to even consider at this point.
So I obviously that'd be great. I want to transition a little bit, and then maybe we'll take some calls from you guys and hear what you want. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the disappointment of Kyle Lowry. Are the Heat really looking around to move him? Obviously, I think we saw recently that like Haywood Highsmith is outscoring him in the fourth quarter recently. So it's been tough. I'm not sure all of it is his fault. Kyle is a guy that needs the ball in his hands, and the Heat are a team that don't really necessarily need him to have the ball. I also just think he's 37 years old and he doesn't have a ton left. They really need a guy that can get to the basket. I think that's why Oladipo's minutes have been good, and while he's been kind of refreshing since he came back, and why he works better with Hero. So, what are your thoughts on that? We mentioned D'Angelo Russell earlier as a move. Maybe we could send Lauri to the Timberwolves because they need some vets that they're having trouble up there. And we've heard a couple other names, Adam. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about possible trades that we had discussed earlier.
Yeah, I mean, let's throw up the trade machine if we can. And thank you, Alex. Let's do Heat Clippers. Let's pull that one up real quick. So I think a real possibility, because the Clippers are, for some reason, really struggling, and at the guard position especially, even though they have a Reggie Jackson and a John Wall. And Trey Mann's been playing point guard for them as of late, and I think that's not necessarily good. I think they'd welcome a Kyle Lowry deal, and they were interested in him when he was a free agent a few years ago, and I think that this year, all of the deficiencies on that roster, with Kawhi Leonard not being at full strength, Paul George doing all the heavy lifting, I think that they could use Kyle, even though Kyle's been really abysmal for the Heat as of late. And the Heat could use a power forward in return. So if you want to, throw Marcus Morris onto the Heat. And then another guy that hasn't really been in the rotation, Robert Covington. If you want to throw him, I don't know why it says that he's a center. That guy's not a center. And if you want to throw to the Clippers, Dwayne Dedman or Yurt, see if that works. Does the money work out? Yeah, I mean, honestly, this kind of deal, I know that you talked about it, Harry, a few days ago, and I think that this is the exact type of deal that the Heat would make involving Kyle Lowry. We know that they like Marcus Morris. They really liked Robert Covington, and they're saving money on this kind of deal. And it fits the exact needs that this team has. One wing defender and a power forward that can stretch the floor for a aging point guard that hasn't really been that useful. And I know a lot of Heat fans will love this. Dwayne Dedman getting off the team. So this kind of deal really makes a lot of sense for both teams. Although for the Clippers, they would have to move Reggie Jackson or John Wall. I don't really see how they would have 3 point guards on the roster. Maybe John Wall would come back to the Heat in a deal. I don't know how much is he making? Is it $7 million?
It's like 6 point something, I believe.
Okay, so maybe there's a no.
Not Caleb.
Yeah, Yurt.
I think the other move that might make sense, and I do believe you're right, Adam, that Wall would probably be moved in another deal, is instead of Dedman going to the Clippers, we do like a small contract like Omer year at 7. And then I think based on the vet minimum stuff, actually both teams save money in a move like that. Clippers are kind of they like Zubac, but they need a backup. They really don't have a very good backup center in addition to having some guard trouble. So even though obviously Yurt's due back at the end of February and we're not exactly sure if he's going to return or how he's going to come off that ankle surgery, I think the Clippers would take a risk on him. Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor. Yeah. So if you just got rid of Wall and then got rid of Dedmon, and I think then in that case, both teams actually save some money. Yeah. So I think that's something that also it could be a possibility. So same guys coming back to the Heat, but Kyle and you're going to the Clippers. There's probably
Yeah, but
something
again,
entertaining.
where the Clippers really have 3 point guards on their roster like that with Reggie, John Wall, and Kyle. I mean, they would do another.
Yeah, I think they would have to make either another deal with another team to move one of them, or they could try to squeeze that into our deal somehow, possibly.
Yeah, or you would just pay a team. $6 million is just under. Sorry, $6 million is just over what teams have this year to move and trade. So the Clippers could essentially pay a team to take John Wall if they wanted to. They could pay money to the Spurs, for example, to take him, and then Spurs could cut him and he could go be a free agent for the rest of the year somewhere. So that's something that could work out as well, where I don't think they're, it's good that Wall is back in the league and playing. I don't think obviously he's been everything they want him to be, but if they could get him to a move where he could be a free agent again, that's probably something he would agree to.
I think the other great thing about this trade is it breaks up Kyle Lowry's contract into 2 different contracts that can be moved in potentially different deals next year.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that too. I kind of think that the Heat are still, even, whether they trade Lowry in the offseason, if they can't move him now, it would definitely be easier to it be broken down. It's also 2 guys that can do stuff that the Heat need instead of just the one guy who's kind of struggling in his role. I've liked Robert Covington for a very, very long time. I understand, he's probably a little bit past his prime, but I like what he can do. You got a very long-rangey defender that can shoot, and Marcus Morris can do the same thing, and hopefully would get the better Morris twin.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're right. Alex, do you want to pull back the trade machine? Let's go to Dallas. So this was a team that you're starting to hear a little bit of whispers about, and this is one of those teams where I'm waiting to hear back from in terms of what they would want to do or if there's any interest mutually. But there are some whispers here that I don't want to confirm or get anyone's hopes up or anything, but this sort of deal theoretically is possible, and hypothetically it's very realistic. If you want to put Timmy back on the Heat and Davis Bertans, send Duncan to Dallas, and give us Reggie Bullock. I think that this is very realistic. And just looking at it, it feels like a lot of somebody explained it to me as just switching chairs on the Titanic. And yes, while that may be true, you're getting off of Duncan's contract, you're getting a Tim Hardaway Jr. back, and he could be an energized Tim Hardaway Jr. To be back home playing for his dad's old team. And to me, that's the only reason why I'd actually really consider this deal. Reggie Bullock is a good shooter that doesn't really, I don't know if he does anything else for you. He's not making that much, so he's really just a filler thrown in there in this kind of deal. But to me, this is just a really kind of deal. There's a lot of other deals that I would rather do before this, but it really does feel like a Heat move to get out of the Duncan Robinson contract and to move Kyle. And they can justify it with Tim Hardaway and sort of that homecoming story and him coming back. And I like I said, the Mavs are looking to move Tim Hardaway, and this seems very realistic.
From a Dallas perspective, how does adding Lowry to a Luka and a Dinwiddie kind of clog things up for them at that point guard spot? Because I feel like all 3 of those guys need the ball in their hands to operate. And, Luka is Luka, of course, he's going to have priority.
Well, I don't think Kyle needs the ball in his hands. If he can just be that vocal leader and stand in the corner when Luka has the ball and hit his shots, that's all that they really need Kyle Lowry to be. It's a very expensive one, but that could be his purpose on that Dallas Mavericks team. And then Spencer Dinwiddie would be six man. So to me, it makes sense. They wanted Kyle Lowry this past offseason. They were actually calling the Heat for Kyle Lowry, and the Heat were the ones that were saying no and denying the phone calls. So, hey, if they're still interested, then this seems very plausible. And for them to take Duncan Robinson, I think that would be huge. Now, before you want to get on, can you adjust the trade real quick? Send Reggie Bullock back to Dallas. Give the Heat Finney Smith, and give the Mavs Caleb. So unconfirmed. Again, very speculative at this juncture, but maybe the Mavs are really high on Caleb, and the only way that the Heat give Caleb up is if they get a Dorian Finney-Smith in return. That could be something that I can see is very plausible, and Dorian Finney-Smith would be the immediate starter at the 4 for this Heat team, and Timmy would be your sixth man, and Davis Bertans, change of scenery. Maybe it does him good, and he becomes a marksman that the Heat need, tall marksman that can get your rebounds so that Royce O'Neal doesn't get them and lose you the game.
So people seem to be a little not fans of this in the chat. I will say, if you guys are worried about losing Caleb, Finney-Smith is a very capable defender in his own right. That's sort of what he does in Dallas. And I think, Harry, you mentioned it earlier in our chat, Bertans' contract is less guaranteed money than Duncan, if you want to talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going to say. More than just, Adam might be right. This might just be shuffling chairs on the Titanic. But I think from a flexibility standpoint, this is significantly better for the Heat. Whether we're doing this move or the one before, Bullock would be a nice $10 million filler contract next year. Hardaway, whether he comes in and he's great, it'd be cool to have Tim Hardaway Jr. playing in the same uniform that his dad played in, and his dad's a Hall of Famer. That'd be a cool story. But the Bertans contract, I know a lot of people think Bertans is just Duncan with less fingers, but that I don't know if I agree with that. That contract is a lot better. So Bertans is on the book for the rest of this year. It's like $17 million next year, and then the following year is only $5 million guaranteed of his contract. So that's only $22 million over the next 2 seasons. So that would be an easy one you could get out of if you wanted to buy him out, or you could trade him and the other team could buy him out of that deal. That's something we see a lot in the NBA, especially in the offseason. And the Duncan contract is long. It's essentially he has this year, next year, the year after, and then he has a $9.88 million guarantee on that last year. So it's not a full 5-year deal, but it's a lot for a guy that you cannot trust in the postseason, and the Heat just don't. He's not a rotation player for the Heat anymore. I know I got into many arguments on Twitter earlier in the year saying Duncan would be part of the rotation, but he's not, whether his fingers work or not. He's just not a guy that's going to be out there. And I would do this deal in a heartbeat. I think dumping Kyle and Duncan and getting more flexible contracts back is better moving forward. It does not win you the championship this year, but it's significantly better. And I'm on board. I understand that Adam's not super excited. I would do this yesterday. It makes it much better going forward.
Okay, so I think with that, do we want to go to the phones?
Yeah, we can do that. Perfect.
Okay, so that is not the phones, Justin.
That's okay. We'll do that. We should always do this. We should always remember we're very, very thankful of our sponsor, the primary sponsor of the basement, Simple Health Advisors. Insurance doesn't need to be complicated. Email them or give them a call today and tell them the basement sent you. Email James Poe, that's JPOUGH at simplehealthadvisors.com, or call at 321-345-7738. James is the best. All my respect for James, and please call him if you need anything. Everybody needs insurance, whether you think you need it or not. You need it.
With that, Justin, you want to put the graphic up for the call-ins? There we go. So if you want to give us a call at 305-699-2045, you'll be put on a hold, and not Justin, it'll be Ant. Ant's going to pick up your phone call, and then he's going to transfer you to us, and we'll hear you, and we'll answer any questions that you have, or if you have a trade for us, we'll put it up for you, and we'll talk about it. So while that's getting going, let's talk about D'Angelo Russell. What do you guys think? Yes?
Sure.
No?
I
Ian?
am a yes for now, but I am not someone that wants to jump to extending him by any means. I do feel like he falls into the same category a lot where he needs the ball in his hands to be effective. I prefer him to Kyle Lowry, of course, because that's probably the main chip you're using to match the salary in that type of trade. But I'm a little hesitant to give, a 3 or 4 year extension to him unless it's a pretty good contract for the Heat in terms of, beneficial to the franchise rather than giving the bag to D'Angelo Russell.
I'm doing it simply because I believe that he would give you more than Kyle Lowry is right now. Younger. I think he's a better fit. I think he'd work better with Hero, and it's an expiring contract. So while I'm also not a big fan of extending him, happy to help him with his next destination in a sign-in trade if that helps us land somebody else. Would be interesting if he got traded for somebody big. Russell's already been traded for Kevin Durant in his career, so it would be interesting to see if he was traded for another top pick in the NBA. I don't know exactly who I'm alluding to, but
I mean, it's pretty clear we're all in. Like, this is the defense would be porous. Him and Hero, same roster together playing.
If you can get a Nas Reed into that deal, I think it makes it a little bit more palatable because, he addresses a need that we obviously need to address as well. And, you can justify giving up a little bit of a sweetener to get a Nas Reed in a deal.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be opposed to, I don't know how much he'd like it, but D'Angelo Russell off the bench would be kind of nice. I think that'd be kind of interesting. Yeah.
No, not it. No.
I like
you're getting D'Lo to start him. It's D'Lo and Hero season. That's what it would be.
Sometimes you got to think outside the box.
No, I'm good. I'm good with that one.
All right, we're staying in the box.
Adam stays in the box. You go out the box.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now let's go to. I know somebody was making a comment about Charlotte and why we didn't make a trade machine with Charlotte. So Alex, do you want to put that up before we get to our first call? Oh, you already got it. Okay, so Kelly Oubre is out for the next 4 weeks. He was a guy that the Heat were interested in, and I can say that for a fact. They wanted Kelly Oubre, and they thought that he would be a good fit, especially considering that he is a expiring deal. And now I think that's probably off the table because he won't be playing until after the trade deadline. I think it's not like Duncan. Duncan should be back before the trade deadline, but Kelly, I don't know. What was it, 6 weeks for Kelly? I think so. That means he's out. Otherwise, PJ Washington is a name that a lot of Heat fans really wanted. He was on the market. He has a lot of stuff going on. But this Hornets team is tanking, and they're going to be really bad. And again, another guy that makes sense. Friends with Bam, Kentucky guy. He's a 4. He's pretty average, I would say, defensively. No qualities that really stand out to me. But he's young, and he could be the long-term solution at the 4. Could be. And so I think, I don't know, it would be really cheap since he's an expiring restricted, and you're really paying you're paying the Hornets to pay PJ Washington, and stop it. No, that's not going to happen.
What, you're not going to let me get rid of Deadman for PJ Washington?
I would love to, but I don't. The Hornets won't.
You don't think Deadman in a first gets that done?
I'm not giving a first for PJ Washington personally.
Yeah, I'm not doing that either. I think if we want to get crazy, let's put Gordon Hayward in a deal, and let's move Kyle Lowry.
Is Gordon Hayward even healthy right now? I honestly have no idea.
He's not.
He's not. We can do Gordon Hayward or Terry.
Take your pick.
Rozier would be a little more interesting. I don't.
Rozier's
love
more
extension.
interesting, but he has not the best contract for a guy like Terry. What he brings, I like him in a spark off the bench type of role, but this contract's a little bit of a scary situation for me personally.
And it's a lot of money. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Oh, we got someone on the phone.
Okay.
And send them through.
Yes, I was calling to see is there any type of noise about the DeMar DeRozan thing anymore, or did they just dead that?
Harry?
All right. Well, we appreciate getting on the phone. Thank you, Trey. I don't really know a lot about the DeMar DeRozan thing. I know they were definitely interested last year. I think money was an issue. The Heat, based on the sign and trade, wouldn't have been able to get contracts that high. So DeRozan's actually being paid pretty well for obviously he's had really back-to-back good years with Chicago. I think we kind of addressed it a bit earlier with what Adam was saying, that Chicago's kind of a hard team. They're the reverse of last year. Last year, they couldn't beat anybody good. This year, they're really doing well against the better teams in the NBA, and especially recently, they've run off some pretty good wins. So I don't know if Chicago's ready to deal DeMar. What have you been hearing anything about that, Adam?
If DeMar were available, the Heat would be on line one. That's for sure. But I don't think that's something that's realistic with the way things are going. If the Bulls go on a 6-game losing streak right now to start off the trade season, then yeah, I think it would be a possibility. But right now, it's not.
And what would
any news about John Collins or anything like that?
I don't think the Heat are interested in paying what the Hawks want and then having him be a part of their core because of how much he's being paid. So either the Hawks have a first-round pick and a young player as their asking price. If they were to move off on that, then it would be a possibility where you move Kyle to a third team and then you get John Collins. But right now, it just seems really unfeasible for the Heat to pay the price and then pay the price when they have him on the team making $25, $26 million when he shouldn't be making that much money. Harry, any thoughts on that, Alex?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It feels like Collins is like a double whammy, so to speak. Like the cost to acquire him is way too high. And then you have to pay him that large contract that you just said for 18, 19 points a game with not great defense. It just doesn't feel like it's really worth it. If the Hawks come off the asking price completely and you can get him for just like some sort of contract flip and maybe like a small sweetener, then maybe that's a move you want to take a swing on and see if it pans out into something. But I can't justify giving them a first for John Collins the way he's currently playing, honestly.
Who do we got on the phone line?
This is
Zach. Zach is on line one.
All right. What's up, Zach?
What's up, Adam?
Is this the Zach that I know?
Huh?
Zach, do I know you?
No, not really.
Okay. Fair enough. Go on, Zach.
I'm hearing some noise about the Dallas Mavericks maybe being a trade partner with the Heat. Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe a Tim Hardaway Jr. could potentially be for like a Lowry Duncan scenario. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about it. I think it's possible. I don't know if it's that helpful. I know Harry disagrees and thinks that it would be a great move. To me, it's just a very move. There's 3 or 4 different trades that I'd rather the Heat do before that. But Timmy coming back to the Heat was always a possibility, and the worse he plays, the more realistic it is. And I know that that's sort of like a sucky thing for us as Heat fans to realize, but that's just how the predicament that the Heat are in with this Duncan Robinson contract and with the Mavs being one of the only suitors for Kyle Lowry. So for those reasons, it's very realistic. And over the coming days, I'm sure we're going to hear more about it. But Tim is definitely available for trade.
I just want to clarify. I love the trade simply because it's getting rid of players I really dislike and don't think do a lot for this team. I'm not sitting here saying make this move and you're an automatic contender. I don't know how much it actually helps the team on the court. Like I said, I like the Hardaway story because his dad played here, and I do like Tim Hardaway Jr. as a player. And simply getting rid of those contracts and turning them into more tradable assets in my mind is better for this team. So if you're sitting there and there's multiple moves like you're talking about, Adam, then there are going to be better moves. But if this is what's out there, I'm cashing in this trade before the deadline. I have no issue with it, and I think the Heat should look into it. If the Mavericks for some reason want Kyle and took it, you say no problem. You guys enjoy him, and thank you, Mark Cuban.
The one thing that we need to think about when we're talking about these deals is this summer, if a star becomes available, I know that we say that we use that word all the time in the summer, and it's always this hype that comes with the Heat, and then nothing ends up happening over the last few years. But if a certain star becomes available that, I don't know, is in LA right now and he might want to come back to Miami, it might be a very small percentage, but if that
Kendrick Nunn, baby, let's go.
Right. If Kendrick Nunn wants to come back to Miami, you're going to need to have the contracts in order to make that deal work. And is that something that's in the Heat front office's minds as they're making these deals? Personally, it shouldn't be, because you should be dealing with the now, not with the what ifs of the next 4 or 5 months, because that's how you get burned. But if that's something that's really realistic, that's going to be something that's weighing on them, and you'll see it in their decision making over the next month or so.
Adam, I think it has to be on their mind because they're so far into the tax already in the offseason that it's not like they're going to be freeing up any real salary to go after guys next year. So the only real upgrades they're going to make is via the trade market. And so those moves are going to be something that has to be done. So if you can break down these contracts,
he's the only one. Like he might be the only guy.
LeBron. We have no idea who's going to be available in 4 months based on what's happened. It's better to do both. Get rid of the junk that's holding you back and be more flexible.
I'm with you. I mean, if I'm making a deal with Kyle Lowry, I want a guy making $20 million plus, who's under contract for 2 more years, or has a similar structured deal to Kyle, but is also helping you right now. I'm with you. Does that deal exist? We don't know.
And guys, I just want to let you know the phone line is open, so please call in. We probably we'll do this for a few more minutes if anyone wants to get in here.
Let's wrap this up. I want to watch the game. Did it start yet?
Yeah, a little bit. Sorry. Alex.
I will say one point on the LeBron thing. You would need like tampering level information at this point to not make moves.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean we've never done that before, okay? Yeah. But you would need that level of information and assurances from him to jeopardize this year and any moves you're going to make.
I don't want to get into that.
Hey, I'm a positive guy. This team is like 4 games away from the 3 seed. We'll be there by the All-Star game, I think. Okay. Anyway, but yeah, like who wouldn't love LeBron back? The Lakers are not in control of that, of course. LeBron is in control of his own destiny. I'm not going to really spend too much time talking about it beyond this because it's just such a fucking pipe dream at this point. But, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pipe dream, but it's definitely something that I think the Heat are going to be cognizant of and will keep in the back of their minds. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know. But overall, I think that the Heat are going to make they're going to make a few moves. I think they're going to make 2 different moves. One will definitely seem like a cost-cutting move that is just for Mickey and to save his money, and then the other one's going to be a move to sort of fit this timeline and fit what the Heat are trying to do, and that's to win a championship. Look, they're definitely going to look through every avenue, every upgrade that they can possibly make, and I do think that they're going to end up with a guard, a scoring guard, and a power forward. So, Dedmon's gone, that's for sure. Duncan, I don't know if the 23 first-round pick is available and they see that there's a big enough upgrade. Duncan's going to be gone along with that first-round pick. Kyle, again, same thing. Kyle will disappear if the Wolves are open to a D'Lo plus Nasri type of deal. So those are the deals that we're going to be looking for. And honestly, I would keep a look at those teams. I would look at Detroit, Charlotte, Toronto, Dallas. Those are the teams that I'd be watching and continue to see how their seasons are going. If they're going into a losing streak, then I'd start to look at DNPs and which players are sitting out and taking extra rests and not playing games that they should be playing, because those are signs that a trade might be coming.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everyone's time tonight. We got a month until the NBA trade deadline, so we're definitely looking forward to that. We will still continue to talk trades. We're going to put out an episode of the Random Scrub Heat podcast tomorrow night. Please follow us, like and subscribe on any of the platforms where there are podcasts. We do it every week. We got a great group of guys talking Heat, regardless of how the team is doing or what's going on. We're still going to discuss it. And we will go into a little more trades tomorrow. So we appreciate the two callers. As always, we appreciate our sponsor, Simple Health Advisors. Adam, thank you for joining us. I know people were excited to have you on here.
I'll be back in a few weeks. We'll do something else soon.
Yeah. And Alex, we always appreciate it. So thank you guys. And that's going to be it for us. We appreciate all the viewers tonight and hope everyone has a great night and enjoys the national championship game.
Play the video, Royal. Play the video, Royal.
Oh yeah. We packing somebody up tonight. Hey. Come on in, take your shoes off before we close the door. Few rules, heat packing the air. We about to blow. This the basement, ain't nobody safe. You already know. Grab a seat and kick your feet before you get too comfortable. You want the X's and the O's, the Trey, yes and no, friends and the foes, the butlers and the heroes. You can feel it in your soul. So when the ring is the goal, but if somebody need to go, we be sure to let you know. Going hard for my dogs is an everyday thing. Like Jimmy down the lane of 13 off the screen. Whole squad keep it tucked like number 17. Bring your takes and your memes. Going hard for the team. Going down in the basement. It's going down in the basement. Get your takes off. Get your takes off. Going down in the basement. Going down in the basement. Get your takes off. Get your